All right, let's talk about something a little strange that's happening in the world of Windows. Microsoft has its big new operating system, Windows 11, and you'd think, right, that everyone would be rushing to upgrade. But that's not what's happening. Instead of a smooth transition, we're seeing this resistance. And the numbers, they tell a really fascinating story.
So check this out. These are the latest figures from StatCounter. For a while there, Windows 11 was doing exactly what you'd expect, climbing steadily. But then, this past August, something weird happened. The trend actually reversed. Its market share dropped to just over 49%. And here's the kicker, Windows 10 and, get this, Windows 7, Windows 7, actually gained ground.
Which, makes you ask the obvious question. Shouldn't this be a one-way street? I mean, a new OS comes out and over time, more people use it and the old one fades away. That's how it's supposed to work. But that is not what we're seeing here. So what is going on?
Now, what makes this whole situation even crazier is the timing. This isn't happening in a bubble. Look at this timeline. Windows 11 hits its peak in July, and then it drops. And this is all happening just weeks before Microsoft is set to pull the plug on mainstream support for Windows 10 in October. This is the exact moment when everyone should be scrambling to upgrade, not running away from it. It's just bizarre.
Okay, so let's start to unpack this resistance. The first, and maybe the biggest reason, has nothing to do with software features or user preference. Nope, it's about the actual computers people own. It's a huge hardware barrier.
240 million. Let that number sink in for a second. That's the estimated number of PCs out there right now that are running Windows 10 just fine, but they are completely ineligible for the Windows 11 upgrade. That is a massive chunk of the user base being told that their perfectly good computer is suddenly obsolete, at least according to Microsoft.
So why are they being left out in the cold? Well, it all comes down to these really strict new hardware requirements. Windows 11 insists on having specific security tech, like a TPM 2.0 chip, and your CPU has to be on a pretty short, fairly recent approved list. What this means in the real world is that millions of older, but still powerful and totally usable machines are just locked out. End of the road.
Okay, so the hardware issue explains those 240 million people. But what about everybody else? What about the people whose computers do qualify? Well, for them, the resistance is coming from a totally different place. It's about the user experience itself. You could call it a death by 1,000 cuts.
This quote here from an IT professional named Kevin Costain, it just hits the nail on the head. He talks about Microsoft's relentless drive to enshitify Windows and how it forces users into this constant cat and mouse game. And that perfectly captures how so many people feel that the operating system isn't working for them anymore, it's working for Microsoft. Imagine this scenario. You turn on your PC one day and your desktop is just gone, wiped clean, and in its place is this one little icon that basically says, "Where are my files?" This is a real thing that happens because of OneDrive's super aggressive backup feature. It just decides to move your local files to the cloud, sometimes without you even realizing it. And if you try to turn it off, poof, the files can disappear, making it feel like your own data is being held hostage.
And it's the same kind of battle for something that should be simple, like creating an account. People just want a plain old local account, one that isn't tied to Microsoft's cloud. So they find a clever command to bypass the sign-in. Then what does Microsoft do? They patch it in the next update. So users have to find an even more complicated workaround, like pretending to join a corporate network. It's this ridiculous back and forth for basic control over your own machine.
And, a lot of users just aren't buying the official explanation for why these changes are happening. Like this person on Microsoft's own community forum said, "Security? What nonsense. They just want to grab data." There's this really deep suspicion that this is all less about keeping you safe and more about harvesting your data.
And on top of all that, there's just this flood of what many people see as bloat. I'm talking about ads for other apps popping up right in your start menu. Simple, classic tools that everyone loves, like Notepad and Paint, are suddenly getting crammed with AI features that nobody asked for. And the catch for all these upgrades? Yep, you guessed it. You have to be logged in with that Microsoft account.
So when you're faced with a hardware wall on one side and a frustrating experience on the other, what do you do? Well, people aren't just taking it. A kind of digital resistance is starting to form, and users are actively looking for other options.
For those millions of people with older PCs, the choice becomes pretty clear.
You can stick with an unsupported Windows 10 and risk security problems, or you can jump ship to something like Linux. A lot of Linux versions run way faster on older hardware, they get consistent security updates, and best of all, they extend the life of a machine you already paid for, saving it from becoming e-waste.
And making that switch isn't the scary, technical leap it used to be. Not at all. Operating systems like Zorin OS and Linux Mint are built from the ground up to feel familiar to Windows users. We're talking a similar desktop, a start menu, a taskbar, the whole deal. Zorin OS, for example, racked up over 2 million downloads in under 3 months, and its creators say that most of those people are coming directly from Windows.
So when you piece it all together, the hardware lockouts, the annoying software changes, the rise of really good alternatives, you start to see that this is about way more than just a software update. This is really about a fundamental question of control.
What this really boils down to is a clash of philosophies. On one side, you've got Microsoft's grand vision for the future, a totally cloud-connected, AI-driven experience that's baked into everything. And on the other side, you have millions of users just saying, hey, we just want a simple, stable, and private tool that we actually have control over.
And that really leaves us with a huge question, one that goes way beyond just Windows. As all of our devices get smarter and more connected, who should really get to call the shots? Is it you, the person who actually bought and owns the thing? Or is it the corporation that wrote the software? That, right there, is the real debate at the very heart of the Windows 11 resistance.